Mayoral candidate Dustin Darden, thank you for joining us today.
Likewise.
So what are you doing for work at the moment? Tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life.
I work with the municipality of Anchorage in fleet services, and I work with vendors around town. I bust tires off in the spring and fall, off the cop cars and off the vehicles that you see driving around town. I like talking to the cops and working with my fellow employees, taking care of business.
And what led you into that work? Just tell us a little bit about your background then.
Well, I grew up as a journeyman carpenter. I went through the Southern Alaska Carpenters Training Center, and I built buildings all over town. I worked on the Denina Convention Center and the Fognac building, the Chugach power plant. So
you have your mark on a lot of well-known buildings in town.
Yeah, there's blood, sweat, and tears for me in a lot of them buildings.
You grew up then in Anchorage, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Were you born here?
Yeah, I was born in Providence Hospital.
Yeah. So have you been outside for any period of time, or have you always called Anchorage home?
I've lived here my entire life, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of running for public office, have you done anything previously to this?
I was heavily involved in contracts through the Carpenters Union, and when they'd come up, I'd put input in to find ways that would maintain a safe work environment and to keep the standards high so that workers can be treated with dignity and respect. Also in our current contract, I also had input in our latest one with the IBEW and the current administration.
So tell me a little bit about why you are running for mayor. What are some of the top reasons that went through your head before you filed?
Well, one of the primary reasons is, in fact, that this AO 37 was tried to be pushed through without public input, without enough public testimony, and I feel like that's completely unacceptable, and that somebody that is working under that contract needs to stand up and say, hey, look, these people put in a hard day's work. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and keep communications open between both parties.
So that would be a sort of a philosophy that you would bring to the table if you're elected mayor, in terms of when you negotiate with the unions?
Absolutely, Kate. Transparency and accountability on all facets of the workforce is something that I will encourage as mayor. I'll make time for even employees to put in input into how they could find more cost-effective ways, and not sitting there and undermining what we've built up as a city for so many years. I'm not just going to undermine them. The fire department, the police department, public works, secretaries, all of them deserve to be represented by a leader that's going to respect them. At the same time, having responsible budgets with responsible department heads that will spearhead cost-efficient methods of running their local departments.
You have a little bit of an insight then, obviously working for the Muni, as to how budgets might work. Is that something that you would be concentrating on, and would you make any changes to how the city is run? Would you make any cuts anywhere?
Any expenditures that aren't absolutely necessary, I wouldn't make. If we don't need a multi-million-dollar tennis court, I'm not going to build one. I want to keep boots on the ground and secretaries working, firefighters working, and I don't want to make cuts to the employees, number one. And number two, I want the people to be treated with respect. I want their input, and not only from the employees, but from the entire community. I'd like to push and encourage the members of this community to have their voice be heard by attending assembly meetings and having functions that will help just boost the morale ultimately in this city.
You're at most of the assembly meetings, if not all, and we've seen you speak your mind on a range of issues. So that's important to you in terms of having a voice, and is that sort of why you're running as well?
Yeah, the constitutional liberties that we've been granted in this country are what make us unique, and they must be exercised for future generations to walk in them. And the First Amendment to the Constitution is something that I love dearly, and I cherish it. And I believe that that liberty must be exercised if we are going to excel as a nation and be a city that could ultimately be an example for the rest of the nation. I believe we have potential to do that, and there's great people in this city that are rising up all over town. So
you must be aware of some of the economic issues that the state is facing and the trickle down that could affect Anchorage. Are you concerned about that?
Absolutely not. The number one thing in this situation that we're coming up to is to stay calm and to just evaluate the situation, to make a responsible budget accordingly to what we're given. Are we going to have to tighten up our belts and not make heavy expenditures, possibly putting projects on hold that we normally would build? Possibly, yes. But to panic and start making excessive cuts and panicking is just not the way I'd respond to this.
And public safety is another issue that we've been looking into lately. And do you have any plans for the Anchorage Police Department as mayor? Do you think changes are needed in terms of staffing or how things are run?
Yes. Number one is to, like I said before, stand up for the cops, that they're covered under the AO 37. I was completely against that, and as mayor, I will treat them accordingly, make sure they're paid accordingly, so that we have the finest and maintain the finest police department in the nation, which we do have. I also believe in community outreach in terms of public safety, self-defense classes, and also social networking, such as Facebook with the APD. It's doing a great job letting people know about events that are going on around town, whether it be traffic accidents or fugitives getting away. And there's also another Nexel, Nexil. It'll send you messages on your phone telling you about stuff to watch out for. So yeah, keeping that transparency, that's kind of my theme, is transparency and speaking what you have to say to help this community.
Is there anything else on the public safety issue while we're still on it that you see changing as mayor in terms of how would we get more police officers on the ground?
Well, we recruit them, and we maintain a standard of excellence where the pay is good, the benefits are good, and that's how you have a good police force. You get what you pay for. If you want cut rate workers, that's exactly what you're going to get.
You said that there are a number of people in Anchorage that are rising up that you've been speaking to. Are you talking about people that you would like to join you in office if you're elected?
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes out for department heads, and I definitely, at this time, I'm not going to cut the entire department. I'm going to reevaluate who's on staff and see what they have to offer and go from there. But I definitely do see some changes coming.
What else would you like to talk about in terms of your visions for Anchorage?
I'd like us to be more publicly involved, and also I'd like for the sanctity of life to be acknowledged. I feel like the issue of labor and right to life has been kind of separated. And I'm standing in the gap saying, look, you can in fact believe that organized labor is legit, and also at the same time say that the right for every human life that's conceived to be brought into this world without interference from the barbaric act of abortion can actually be achieved.
How are those two things connected?
Well, I've seen on the right side of the spectrum that work can be privatized, and it can be the top down. You put a lot of money at the top, they get the bids, and then the workers wind up eating it in the end, not getting accurate funding for a hard day's work, and then they're pro-life. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I see that not in all cases, but in a majority, that people will be on the labor side of the equation, saying, you know, union, but then at the same time they don't support right to life, which is completely intolerable. I believe that it's a genocide that's being portrayed in our nation. That
and as mayor, what kind of things could you do to address that in your belief? How would you, as mayor, be looking at that?
Well, the number one thing we can do is pray, but two, the second thing we can do is use our First Amendment speech and call this out. You know, on the corner of 40th and Lake Otis, 6 days out of the week, every other week, there's numerous innocent lives being lost, and to disregard that I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't speak up for that, because there has to be a time where we take a stand, and I believe that time is now, and it gets in the same kind of boat as my feeling on fluoridated water. We pump poison into our public drinking water, and fluoride is known to be good topographically on the teeth, but to ingest it into the body it's not good for the thinking, for the brain, for any part of the system of the body. And it's just, I say these two issues together because they're both things that are just, they're wrong, and people have been misinformed, fed lies, and then now it's acceptable, whereas it's in fact not.
I want to cover one more issue with you, and that's housing. Tell me about any concerns that you have with the cost of living in Anchorage. I'm talking about rental prices and actual house prices. They're going up as they do every year, but I'm hearing from a lot of people that they're concerned about being priced out of the market. Is that something that you would address as mayor?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to dig into cutting all property taxes and pushing for sales tax across the board. You know, the rental apartments right now, those owners aren't paying those taxes. They push them off on the renters. So you're getting that higher rate because of the high property taxes. Now it's up to the voters, and it's been put through before and it didn't pass, but I think we could reevaluate it, come up with some strategies, like I said, with the community involvement, because I feel like people who own homes here, for the most part, they don't feel like this is 100% their home. It's like, well, I pay taxes to the city for this home. So the ownership, you know, the feeling of owning this is my home isn't really there.
And you think we can make it up through a sales tax? We could eliminate all property and make it up through a sales tax?
Yes.
And you would push for that as mayor, even though it would take a vote of
yes,
people?
I'd push for it with the community's involvement, drawing up a nice plan, getting it out there, seeing what they think. And like I said, not like AO 37, I'm not just going to throw some curveball at the people and then, no, I'd let them hash that out together as a community.
Anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, you know, the main thing really, ultimately, and this is where the First Amendment is so important, is that the peace that I found in Jesus Christ, you know, when I received him and I started walking in his presence and his sacrifice, how he saved me, is the one thing I believe that I couldn't do without. You could take everything from me in this world, but Jesus, he's the best thing ever. And I just love saying that, and I'm not pushing that on anybody to say, you know, you got to do this, but I just say that because if you're going through any like turmoil or any kind of unrest or just any uncertainty, that just know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God loves you so much, and that if you just give everything to him, and he knows everything. You know, God knows everything, and if you give it to him, he'll forgive you of it all, and he'll help you, and he'll make you new. And I say that too because there's a lot of pain in a lot of the things that we go through, a lot of the sin, but Jesus paid for all of them.
Mayoral candidate Dustin Darden, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.